Technology is a tool, not a toy.
If you're going to consume, it should be for an intention.
You've got to have targets that are so exciting. They're more exciting than your phone.
How do we teach these ongoing principles that she can apply?
You help them get there, but then when they're there, they're super self-directed.
Do we have the lives that our children would want to have?
Hey there, this is Greg Denning. We want to reach as many people as possible and help as many families as possible with these conversations. And we want to keep this podcast ad-free forever. You can help us do that by subscribing on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, your favorite platform, and on YouTube. And leave a quick review and share your favorite episodes with friends and family. It makes a big difference. Thank you for being a part of this very important movement. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Extraordinary Family Life Podcast. We're your hosts, Greg and Rachel Denning. Excited to answer another awesome question
From Instagram.
It's so relevant because our lives are now
Digital.
They just have digital crap in them all the time. And of course, there's so much good that comes from technology, but it is a legitimate problem that this question, I think, addresses very well.
Okay. Hi there. I've admired your family from afar. I'm wondering if you could give some insight into how you've managed cell phone usage with your teens. How have you allowed freedom, but also hold boundaries? What have you done when a child is too connected and aware of their phone? We have been a very low-tech family. We got our oldest smartphone when she got her license at 16. No apps, no internet. She will be 18 this month. She has minimal apps and no social media. At this point, she says she doesn't want them, but she is constantly picking up her phone. She doesn't engage in life as she used to, in building relationships with her siblings or playing the piano, reading books, painting, etc. She's either doing schoolwork or on her phone texting and using Marco Polo and photos. How have you managed an older teen? We don't want to be too overbearing and want to allow more freedom, but it's been so hard seeing her change and not engage in her life as she used to. I'm starting by emphasizing the positives. Like, there are a lot of positives and there are a lot of benefits to having devices, having technology. What I want to talk through today is, like, how do we manage this, not just for our children, because the question is geared towards children, older teens specifically, not just for them, but I would say even for ourselves. So
it's a real problem for everybody who has technology.
Which is at this point.
Well, now it's from toddlers to adults.
Right.
Everybody's facing this, and there are screens everywhere. It's got to go back to a core philosophy.
Yeah.
And one of those elements for us is that technology is a tool, not a toy.
Absolutely. Something we've always taught our kids. And raising our children in this environment where they don't know anything else, they've known smartphones almost their whole life. How do we manage this? And I think there is a clear distinction between younger children and older teens. Little children, toddlers, they shouldn't have devices.
Agreed.
They should not be entertained with devices.
Because it robs them of their childhood.
Yeah, that's the biggest reason. It robs them of their childhood and of the development that happens in the real world when they don't have those sucking distractions.
We're taking away fundamental development that needs to be happening in a child. And on the surface, we think, well, it's all good. Like, I don't notice anything different. There is absolutely a difference, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's social skills. It's practices and brain development.
That comes just from interacting in the world with, like, moving and walking and crawling and playing and climbing and jumping and
touching and smelling and just exposure to more things.
Learning.
Yes, experiential learning is vastly limited. I think it's important to emphasize here that one of the biggest concerns is that it is hurting mental emotional health.
Absolutely.
And you don't see it when the kids are doing it, like, no, it's all good. But it's rolling out when they're teens and young adults.
It's not just a correlation, it's a causation.
Yeah.
Smartphones, and particularly, at least for girls, social media apps are causing anxiety and depression, not just contributing to it, causing it. And then for boys, it's, of course, connected usually to the video games and things like that. So that all of that research is very clear now. And so that's why, for me, when they're very young, no devices. They really should not have access to specifically social media until they're at least 16. Before you get on your phone, you need to have a purpose.
Yep.
Whenever I pick up this phone, I've got to think, why am I picking it up and what am I going to do on it right now?
I think we're establishing the core philosophy,
Yeah.
the foundation and the framework. Everything needs to be built on that. Unless we have an understanding, unless we can get that understanding into our children's heads, like, what's the point? They're just like, well, you said all this, but then it's always going to be, well, mom and dad just came up with these arbitrary rules or whatever.
Right.
And you're like, no. There is a core principle behind this.
The other thing we're teaching is if you're going to consume, it should be for an intention, a purpose. So if you want to get on and watch a video, great. That's so you can learn how to play a song on the piano. A lot of them have taught themselves to play the piano from watching YouTube videos. You're going to make a craft, you're going to crochet something or draw something. That is their reason for getting on YouTube and consuming YouTube content. It's with the intention of creating.
There's actually enough good things available through a phone. You could spend the rest of your life doing good things on a phone.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then that's also where it becomes a challenge, because you could say, well, I'm only doing good things on here. And that could be true. But we also have to dig into why. Oftentimes we have to convince ourselves of this or dig deeper into ourselves so we understand it, why it's important for us to not be on the phone all the time, even if it is good things.
Yep.
Like, why do we still need to be engaged in the real world, right?
And that's an important and difficult conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you're like, wait a minute, I could do so many good things mentally, spiritually, emotionally, like every form of education, business, I could just do on my phone. So why should I not be on my phone 8 to 10 hours a day?
Yeah.
And there's plenty of research out there and lots of reasons that we've got to look away from the phones and do things off of them. Got to be engaged in life, which is part of their question. And I love that they're observing that and just noticing it's like, well, she's less engaged in ways that she used to be. And I think those are important and healthy ways that as technology takes its part in our life, I think we all have to deliberately fight for and kind of box out. I picture, a basketball player, boxing it out and holding out arms and elbows. Like, I'm keeping space here for real connection, face-to-face communication without a device.
Right. And this is challenging because, well, first of all, I'm saying that this is normal. Like, okay, she hasn't had a device. Now she has a device. It's normal that she's going to be spending time figuring it out, learning about it, seeing what's possible.
Well, and using what she likes. She's like, Marco Polo,
exactly.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
And then we want to do that all the time.
Which then, by default, means that, anytime you're doing one thing, you're automatically not doing something else. So, yeah, by default, she's not doing some of these other things.
Like, a perfect example is more time on Marco Polo with a distant friend than time with a sibling.
Right. Exactly. Which, again, has pros and cons.
Right.
You know what I mean? As our children grow up, they naturally are seeking out other relationships outside of the family. Like, that's a normal biological process, because otherwise they would never leave home. They would never seek out a mate. And so we want them to be doing those things because, and it looks different now because the world has changed. And of course, now more people meet their spouse online than any other way, which is indicative of our society. But I also think interesting in that, in a way, it's expanding your borders, right?
Which is good.
Yeah, which can be a good thing.
Like, if you live, like, picture somebody living in a small community, or well, it doesn't even matter if you're in a big community. Like, if you're bound by geography and like it's the people within this 5 or 10 mile radius
in your zip code.
Yeah. And they're like, that's where I get to pick my friends from. That's where I get to pick my teachers from. That's where I get to pick my future spouse from. It's like, oh, well, what if my people don't live here?
Yeah.
And where technology has changed that, especially for us, that's true for us. We have friends all over the planet and we've really connected with great people everywhere.
We can't necessarily say, oh, stop doing that, or you should be spending more time here, especially as they're getting into this age, because they need to be expanding their borders. They need to be expanding their connections so that when they're ready, they can meet and know how to meet potential spouses or whatever.
I think that's worth emphasizing right there, that if we only do online communication or predominantly, we might actually be weak in actual communication.
Yeah.
And I know many people in this generation, they learned how to text and they have a really hard time drafting an email or just having a conversation in person. So finding that balance. So using the communication online and then making sure that we're also cultivating and developing those in-person skills as well. For just as one example of how to use technology and then how to purposefully set it aside and cultivate in-person skills.
It's learning to recognize the things that are happening, but also viewing the potential pros and cons and talking through it and having those conversations, because ultimately we have to see that this is a long game, really. Like, this is a skill or this is a practice that she's going to be doing for the rest of her life. She's not going to, like, you have a talk with her and you discuss it or and you put some boundaries and then, like, she's set for the rest of her life. No, there's going to be times when she's 20 and 30 and 40 and still struggling with, how do I manage technology in my life? Because, like we're saying, as far as we know, it's not going away. This is something we're all doing. This is something as parents we should be doing. So it's an ongoing process. And I think in some ways we have to view it that way, of like, we have these ongoing conversations of how are we using technology in our life? Not like, what's the one solution that fits all that I put it in place and now we're done. Now we're good with managing devices. It's like, no, she's going into an adulthood and she's going to have to learn how to manage this and negotiate this basically for the rest of her life. So it's, how do we teach these ongoing principles that she can apply and these questions that she can ask herself to see, okay, let me check in. How am I doing? First of all, okay, so answering the question, she needs to be clear about what she wants. And this is a principle we use. Like, what is it we want in life? We have to think about, how do we want to be spending our time? What are our goals? What are our dreams? And
well, that starts with having goals and dreams.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got to have a target, because and a lot of adults don't, and a lot of youth don't. And so you're like, hey, what do you dream about? What are you focusing on? Like, nothing.
Well, and
so then why not spend all your time on your phone?
Exactly. If you don't have dreams and goals and things you're working for, then it almost to people seems stupid to not be spending your time on your phone, because what else are you going to be doing?
Exactly.
And that's really, I think, the ultimate challenge or problem is that by default, and this includes parents as well, of course we're going to be gravitating to our phones. We're going to be gravitating to devices because it fills the time.
Yeah.
And if we don't have anything else to do, why not?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess I want to emphasize this. You've got to have targets that are so exciting. They're more exciting than your phone. You got to have targets that are more enticing than entertainment.
Or at least that the pursuit of them and the vision of achieving them is more enticing. Yep. So there has to be a bigger driving, motivating force in her life, in our lives as parents, in order to see this perspective of, oh, well, yeah, there's a reason I should be interacting with humans in the real world so that one day I can have a great relationship, as opposed to, well, I'm just going to send Marco Polos, or I'm just going to, text.
At the core, is she living a great life story?
Or does she have a vision of a great life story
she wants to live? And at the core of that is, do you as a parent? So the very first thing Rachel and I have to do is think, man, babe, are we living a great story? Am I pursuing big goals and dreams? I have noble targets that I'm going after. Am I living life? And if I'm not, how in the world can I ever expect my kids to do that? If I tell them to do it and tell them they should do it, but I'm not doing it, lame. The message dies because I suck as the messenger, because I'm not living the message. And so you and I have to be living a great life and showing the example. So when our kids are watching us, our kids, and ladies and gentlemen, you hopefully you get this. Like your kids see you. They see you for what you are. And they see you and probably know you better than anybody else. They're just watching. They're more likely to do what you do than to do what you say.
Right.
And so we have to live that message. We have to be pursuing it. And then by pursuing it, our kids will want to follow our example. And so then we talk about, hey, what are you pursuing? What are you working on? Is this helping you get what you want out of life? That's a core question right there.
Right. I think one of the most powerful aspects of actually pursuing it yourself, right, of actually walking the path, is that it gives you the knowledge, the understanding, the words to use to help your children understand how to walk the path themselves. How can I ask my kids to read more books when I'm not reading more books, right? We have to walk that path ourselves, and we have to be able to disconnect ourselves from our own use of technology. And I'm speaking from experience because you and I, we work online. We have a location independent business, which by default means we are online a lot. We have to be very intentional about disconnecting from that and still living a very full real world life and still having very meaningful real world communication and interactions with our children, with each other, so that we are modeling that for them. And so that it's not just lip service. We're like, no, we have had to do it ourselves because we know how easy it is to get lost in the online world. And so we have to have walked the path so that we now have the words and we can paint the picture for them of why it matters, why it's important, and then how to actually do it.
There's one more aspect to that I think is so important. It goes right along with what you're saying, is that you also have to have the results to back it up.
Yes, absolutely.
So not only you have the feeling, the experience, the words to share, but you have the results that hopefully your kids want. If we have to be honest, because kids are honest.
Yeah.
If they're sitting there like, you're some of the lamest people, your lives are so lame, they're not going to listen to us. I've been able to work with youth and young adults for decades, and they will tell me that. They're like, my parents are so boring. Their lives are so empty. They don't do anything. Or, whether they're super unhealthy or they're unpleasant, they're miserable. And they keep telling me to do this stuff. And you're like, well, yeah, no wonder. If you just look at it just with that blunt honesty, like, why would my kid listen to me if I'm overweight, out of shape, unhappy, miserable, boring, empty? Like, my life is just bleh. And I'm like, son, you should do this. It's
and
like,
stop spending
yeah,
so much
right.
time on your device because you should be in the real world. And they're like, why? The real world sucks.
Yeah.
Why would
Your life sucks.
Do we have the lives that our children would want to have?
Would they gladly trade places with you?
Yeah. Do they want to grow up and basically be us because they're like, you've got a happy marriage. You've created a happy family that I like to be a part of. You are pursuing your dreams and goals. You've achieved things that are inspirational.
You're so pleasant and enjoyable to be around.
Yeah, you're pleasant to be around, and I like being around you. I'm emphasizing this because as we continue to move into digital worlds, which are coming, it's like Ready Player One, the whole virtual realities, all of that stuff is coming, and it's going to be more and more and more tempting to want to live in those worlds. And the reason people do it is because it's a form of escapism. They're like, my life is boring and pointless and meaningless. Why would I not just spend more time in this exciting, fun digital world? And, while this is starting with texting and Marco Poloing and whatever.
If as a parent, I have no friends and I'm telling them, like, you spend too much time chatting your friends, they're like, well, Dad, you have no friends. Like, I don't want your life. So I'm going to do the opposite of what you say because I actually want friends. If they look at me like, gosh, you have great friendships and you do cool things. And well, first of all, what they're saying is that you and I are best friends. So they're going to see that Rachel and I are best friends And all our kids have seen that. And that's the caliber of marriage they want. So
Mm-hmm.
when they're thinking about dating, when they're thinking about marriage, like, yeah, I want that kind of relationship. So they're going to pursue the things that lead there. But if you and I were just like roommates, taking care of things, hanging out here and there every once in a while, and living boring lives and really didn't have many friends, they're going to see that right away.
We love to give lots of
Yep.
possibilities because there's always layers here. With everything, with every challenge you're dealing with, every problem you're trying to solve as a parent or in your marriage, there's always multiple layers. And so we have to learn to look at the different layers and decide how many layers are contributing to the problem and which ones apply to us, So we have to look at these different aspects, like what is missing? What is not here? What am I not teaching? What am I not modeling? What am I not leading out on? That one is not showing my child how to do it or inspiring them to do it, or two is not giving me the words, the influence, the information and the power to be able to talk through with them this new aspect of growing up, this new part of, becoming an adult. Because like I said, that you have to view this as like, this is a long-term thing.
Well, I guess I want to emphasize that we have a 17-year-old and 19-year-old and
At home.
now at home, and they both have their own phones that they paid for. We're not paying for their phones. And they both earned over time our trust. And so we don't have any like passcodes or restrictions on their device uses because they've earned that. And we teach them the principles and they practice it.
We do have those in place for like our 14-year-old.
Yep, and below.
Definitely, yeah, 14 and below.
So because even at 14, they just don't have the cognitive capacity yet to understand abstract ideas and to see the big picture of connecting their daily actions with their long-term outcomes.
Nor do they have the daily discipline to be able to manage the use of device, right? Without if it's available to them in an unlimited way, it's just like putting unlimited cookies on the counter and then expecting them to not eat them.
Right.
Like that's just the stupidest strategy ever.
Right.
If you don't want them to eat the cookies, you don't put the cookies out there, or you put out however many you want them to eat and you let them eat that one cookie, That's how it happens. But as they get older, since we're talking about older teens, back to a couple more strategies we can use here. Yeah, one of them might be, and it depends on the maturity level of your child. Because we have raised our children this way, I could never imagine doing this for my 18-year-old, but that's because we've taken a different approach. But I do know some 18-year-olds are just not mature enough to be able to handle themselves. They've never been able to practice that skill, and so they don't have that self-discipline or those decision-making capabilities. And so you might want to be putting screen time restrictions on them.
That's a great
and
point.
Things like that.
Age has so little to do with it. It's about maturity, responsibility, discipline. Right. Them, I guess here's the most effective way to do it. Because, well, let me rant here for a second. I feel so strongly about this. We do not want our children to be obedient. If you're seeking for your kid to be obedient, then at first you think, well, that sounds good. That sounds great. I want my kids to be obedient. If they're obedient, then they're safe and they're good.
They're listening.
They do what I say.
Rules.
You're like, no, they're just conforming to your thinking and it's not theirs. They haven't adopted it. They haven't embraced it. Those aren't their standards or rules.
Practice their decision-making muscles.
Right. So all they're doing, if I have obedient kids, all they're doing is they're doing what I want. And as soon as I'm not there, they do what they want.
Right.
I'm like, no, that's a flawed philosophy. And everybody seems to be on that train. I want obedient kids. Teach your kids to be obedient. And I'm like, no. Even in church, like, teach your kids to obey God. You're like, whoa. I don't want obedient children. I want self-directed children. I want children who know how to think, who know how to make decisions, and then are capable of following through on those decisions.
Right.
I want children who want, yes, exactly, totally self-reliant, independent. They want good outcomes, and they do what it takes to get them.
Right.
That's what I want. Now, you help your kids get to that point because they're not automatically going to get there because you have one conversation with them one day. You help them get there, but then when they're there, they're super self-directed.
Yeah.
So I don't have to worry about obedience anymore. I don't have to tell them to do something and they do. They're chasing their own greatness. They understand everything because we have taught them. So they're like, yeah, why would I spend all that time staring at my screen? It'll ruin my life. This is how our older teens think now. Like, why would I do that? What a waste of life.
Mm-hmm.
You and I, we hardly have to say or do anything at this point because we've taught them over time how to make that a reality, and they're pursuing it.
Right. And so, but if you are starting with an older child who is lacking that maturity, because, it comes through practice, it comes through having the opportunity to, again, develop some of these decision-making skills and being able to have a vision and goals that they're working on and a bigger picture of what they're trying to do. Using some of the strategies we used for them when they were younger can be very helpful if they don't already have those capabilities. And so one of the things that we do using the screen time passcodes, which essentially means, they may have access to the main device passcode, but many of the apps will be restricted to them. And in order for them to use them, say YouTube or Pinterest or Instagram or whatever, they have to come to me and I have to put in the passcode for them. And then I give them usually it's 15 minutes or an hour of time. But that's this natural accountability process of like, okay, you, and I'll sometimes word it this way, like I gave you the chance to practice. You've been spending hours and hours and hours on this thing. We're going to restrict it now. When you want to use it, you come to me and let me know and I'll give you access, but then it automatically shuts off because you haven't learned how to shut it off.
Well, the reaction might be, are you kidding me? I'm 16 years old. I'm 17. I'm 18 years old and you're doing this? To which you would just calmly, with a smile, say, yes, you're right. You are 18. Act like it.
Exactly right. And you
When
should
you
be able
begin acting with maturity and managing your life well,
Right.
great. So prove to me that you're mature enough to use this power tool.
Right. And another strategy we would use, and for a time, when our older teens were younger, sometimes I would do this every week on Sunday, because on my iPhone, every week I get a screen time report. When I get my report, I'll just take a screenshot and I share it in our family chat, just kind of like a check-in where people are like, oh, yeah, how much time have I been spending on my device? It's just creating this awareness of us helping to pay attention to where we're spending our time.
I would say that's one of the most important things we can do to help our kids is help them come up with time and space restrictions.
Yeah.
So sit down, have a conversation, and say, hey, this is a power tool. The phone's awesome. You can do so many cool things, but it can also be very dangerous. So how would you like to keep this in a proper place in your life so it doesn't take over your life?
Exactly.
And help them set up a thing like, I don't know, maybe it's 9 or 10 o'clock at night, phone's done, period, no exceptions, it's off. So it doesn't go way into the night and disrupt their sleep. Or there's spaces like, hey, the family living room or the kitchen table or your bedroom
is the no phone zone.
Yeah, there are no phone zones, period. And have them create spaces and times. They're just, hey, no, it's hard line here. We don't violate that because that's where you get into real trouble.
Yeah.
3 a.m. and you're still scrolling. It's insane.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that, especially talking about the modeling as parents, we can sit down and have this conversation together and be like, hey, you know what? I've been spending too much time on Instagram or on my device. Here's my screen time report from last week. So I'm setting a schedule for myself. I'm not going to get on my phone before 9 a.m. I'm not going to be on my phone after 10 p.m. Whatever. You write it all down. I'm not going to spend more than an hour on Instagram. Now, the key here, I think, is letting them have some of that free will and ownership, because maybe they'll pick a time where you're like, oh, that's a little much, but let them fill it out themselves. If they pick 2 or 3 hours on Instagram, okay, but then check in and be like, how is it being on Instagram that long? How are you feeling?
The more they get to choose, or the more they come up with the ideas, the way more likely
ownership they have, and the more
they want to. Like, if I come and say you're limited to this, they'll fight it.
Exactly.
But I say, how much you want to limit it, and they say the same number,
yeah,
then they'll stick to it. They're like, I'm committed. I want this.
Yeah.
Where if you tell them, they'll fight you. They'll go over on purpose just because you came up with a number.
Exactly. Right.
I want to emphasize this accountability thing because I think it's extremely rare. I don't know. Actually, I can't think of a single family I know that has this total open transparency that we operate with in our family. We have open transparency between us and with the kids.
Right.
So then the kids are never going to come, and they do say this still, like, don't you trust me? And you're like, I don't trust anybody, including myself. But if you're like, I have privacy, Rachel has privacy, everyone has privacy, and I'm like, kid, I want to see exactly what you've been doing. Then they feel like, what the heck?
Why'd you single me out?
Yeah, why don't you trust me?
Right.
And instead we teach the whole principle like, well, look, I wouldn't trust myself with all the evil and the garbage and the crap out there. I'm a human being as much as anybody else. And if you put all this stuff in front of me and I'm tired and not thinking clearly and I'm alone, it's private, like you're setting yourself up for failure. So with total transparency in the whole family, none of the kids are going to be like, leave me alone. I get to do whatever I want. You don't have to be watching over my shoulders. Like, no, everybody sees what everybody's doing and there's nothing to hide and no temptation to hide it.
Yeah. And you're right. I think that that's something that we've probably just taken for granted that's a part of our family culture, but it is unique in that there's no hiding of anything. There's nothing like, no, mom, it's my phone. You can't have my password. It's just like, oh, hey, what's your password? Oh, it's this. True, true, true. They're not afraid of me getting on there. You know, there's nothing to hide. I literally don't have anything to hide from you or them. But that is a part of the modeling and the family culture of kind of like, yeah, I'm going to show you exactly where I spent my screen time. And I'm going to be accountable for that.
In my imagination right now, I can hear some of you listeners like, my kids don't need to have like transparency with me and my stuff. They don't need to know what I'm doing. And again, I'm like, well, wait a minute, what are you hiding? As a parent, what are you trying to hide from your kids? Are you trying to put on a show? Do you have a mask, a facade? Are you trying to pretend something? Like, are you secretly doing all this crap that you don't want them to see because you're telling them to be good kids and live good lives, but you're not?
Our job is to model and mentor for our children how to do life.
Every single
aspect
of life.
So that includes dealing with the traumas and the challenges and the difficulties and the obstacles and the money and the sex, and like, that's our job.
Yep.
We're here to mentor, to first learn it ourselves and then to mentor our children through it so they don't have to figure it out on their own. That's my role. And again, I don't want people to take this the wrong way. It's not like we share every single thing with our children. There's definitely things that are private. Like, we keep our sex life private. It's in the bedroom. I would say our family in general is very modest and we're very respectful. Yep. There's also parts of communication or things that we share that we keep private because it's between you and I, right? I will cry to you and I won't go cry to my children because you're the rock, you're the lighthouse, you're meant to carry that burden. I'm not going to go cry to my 10-year-old like I would cry to you, because not that I'm hiding things from her, but she doesn't have the emotional, mental, physical maturity to handle that burden like you have to handle that burden.
But we also don't hide the fact that you cried to me.
Yeah. Okay, so anyways, we've talked about tools, not toys. We've talked about create, not just consume. But, you know, an appropriate amount of consumption is great, but it needs to have limits.
I want to bring this up. Like, make sure if your kids are on social, like, who are they following and why?
Yeah.
Teach them.
There needs to be a purpose to it.
Yeah, like, you can't just follow. Like, oh, I saw this person following. Like, was that a kind of person you want to be like? Would you trade places with that person? Are they inspiring you? Are they teaching you? Are they helping you want to be better? Or are they just weird and they're teaching stupid ideas? And a lot of teens and young adults struggle with that because they so desperately want friends. They want to be accepted. They want to be liked, that they'll kind of, quote, try to be friends
with whoever. Yeah.
You're like, no, man, have standards. Say no. Do not follow people online that you wouldn't want to trade places with. If they don't have the results that you want and they haven't gotten those results in good, healthy ways, don't follow them. And this is true for adults too.
Okay. So other points that we've covered, making a plan, like setting down beforehand and saying, okay, how much time am I going to be on my device and how much time am I going to be on these apps and when am I going to be done for the day? So it's almost like you're pre-deciding how to spend your time rather than just responding to
your whims.
your whims and your
It's like,
boredom
oh,
and
I'm
whatever.
bored, or I
Yeah.
need some downtime, or I just don't feel like
Yeah.
it. And that's where we end up wasting so much time in life on a
Yeah,
screen.
as adults and teens.
So live the message, share the message, do it super effectively. We all have to work on being more persuasive and influential.
Which starts by, like you said, living the message
And
yourself.
then tactfully introducing these ideas. We got to be more tactful about it and introduce it in a way the kids are like, oh, I totally get that. That's cool. I'm on board. That's what you want at the end of a conversation. You want your kids to be like, wow, that makes sense. I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you win as a parent, especially with devices that are in our lives. They're here to stay and they are alluring and addictive. And so we're, in a very real way, this is how, at least how I like to see it, I'm competing with a very addictive device. And so I have to be better than the device.
Mm-hmm.
If I want my kids' attention and I want to keep their attention more than a device, I crazy love this idea. If I, as a father, want to have my kids' attention, more of their attention than their phone gets, I have to be awesome. And I will win that war. That's how committed I am to being a world-class father. I will win that war, which means I'm going to have better results. I'm going to be more
Excitable.
pleasant, more excitable. Yeah. More exciting, more inspiring, more inspirational, like whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be more than that stupid device. And so far I'm winning massively.
Mm-hmm.
My kids want to spend time with me and they want to do what I do and they want the results that I have. And I'm winning. It's like, and my older kids especially, like, why would I spend time on a stupid screen when I could be out doing something seriously epic with my dad? And that's right where I want to be with that. Okay. Love you guys. Thanks for listening. Reach up.